You're on.
Okay. Well, we welcome you. I put something on the board just to look at. This is the beginning of the encyclical Veritatis Splendor by John Paul II. St. John Paul II, John Paul the Great, some people say, many people say. It is the beginning of his encyclical, which was written 40 years ago, but feels as relevant as ever, as with all of his writings. Oh, microphone.
Thank you.
So this is an encyclical, which means it's the highest level of authority that a pope writes from. Sometimes they write letters of encouragement and so forth. This is an encyclical, which means that it is a teaching. And it is the highest level in terms of its fidelity to the truth and as a teaching body. Okay, but anyway, this is something we cited on Sunday. So I'm Father Mark. I'm glad that you're here today. One thing that's really important, and I bring this up because this was a document, it's an encyclical, it's a document, that I cited on Sunday in the homily. And I think, Father Scott, we were very much on the same page this weekend. We've been doing more of that lately, where we're trying to preach either on the same topic or even a lot of times the same content. But I brought this up to our attention because it's very relevant. Tonight's topic is the Christian moral life. It kind of feels strange in some ways to be in it for 3 weeks. First we read it not this Sunday, but the last Sunday. Then this Sunday it was very relevant because we were talking about voting and conscience and so forth. And then I think for sure it's also relevant to some degree to tonight. But it leads me to an important reminder. So you're obliged, I think, to try to come to these classes, which is great. They're not optional. It's essential that there's a cumulative sense, and there's a sense in which we're journeying together, and to miss things is no good. But also one of the things that we should be coupling that with is Sunday Mass, right? I don't know how much that was mentioned, but the hope is that that we are also going to Sunday Mass, maybe even if not with our sponsor, at least by ourselves or somebody else, because a lot of good comes from that, and of course to get used to that, right? As soon, God willing, that if you journey and become and enter and received into the church at Easter, it will be part of your yearly rhythm, and it's better to get into that rhythm now and to feel that, and not only is it good for you, but it's also good in the sense of it won't feel like all of a sudden suddenly I'm obliged to go to Mass, but I've not done any of that for the last year. So really encourage you as a sponsor to encourage that and to have some level of accountability with your one who's journeying. And then of course, to do that together would be great, but even if you're just doing it out on your own, that's really good. Okay, tonight we're going to start off with something that's going to make everybody really happy. It's a quiz. This brings up another point. You should be doing the readings, okay? And the temptation is to not. I'm just going to learn it all in class anyway. But that's not true. And to really make sure that if we come here, we're able to add and to supplement and to go over it again. I mean, repetition is good. And we're covering a lot. I mean, this is, once upon a time, we would have journeyed to the church over the course of many, many years. Now in the United States, we've, kind of changed and modified so that you begin in the fall and end in the spring. So, but let's start with the quiz. Let's see how good, and see what we can review from these readings. So I used mostly our sheet. Everyone's just sitting there. Get your phones out. I didn't write this quiz for Richard. Well, Richard, you should take it too and see if you can pass. Come on. Look at him. He's not doing it. Come on. Get the code. Have you ever done this before? Joinmyquiz.com. And then enter the code, 11928. Look how there's 2 participants. Oh, we're up to 3. There we go. Woo, woo, woo. 7, 8. 8 out of 60. Not bad. JoinMyQuiz.com, 119 teacher. Teacher Gabby, show her the way. Show her the way. 15 participants. The real Father Mark has joined. Awesome. Sais is here. Health. I hope wellness joins soon. Dustin's here. Sylvia is brave. E&T. Sounds like a rapper name or something. Okay. 23, 24, 25. We're getting closer, Richard. What's the real number we should have? 40, 50? I gotta get closer. At least 25 catechumens. Okay, great. Give you 20 more seconds. So it's exciting. Look, I do think we should, like I say, to read ahead of time is good. Because there's a lot of data, and for some of us it's very new. And there's two sets of things to read, both, of course, the catechism and then the packet as well. Now, which one is without error always and everywhere? That's the catechism. But the packet is good because it kind of helps maybe flesh things out a little bit more. So it's good to read both, for sure. We got 34, not too bad. Some people are, maybe you've never done this before. I didn't go Cahoots out because apparently now you have to pay for that. You can only get 10 free participants, so like ridiculous. But I was like, but this one's pretty cool. And I even tried to use the AI thing where you like I take all my notes and then it made a quiz, but it was like not. It wasn't great. So it was a good chance to see whether it's better to use our brains or to default to AI. Okay, here we go. Y'all ready? Close. Oh, one more. Anybody else? Need one more second?
Let's go.
39. Sup, says he. This is good. This is good. Apparently it limits you to saying things like that rather than this is dumb or why are we doing this? Okay, good.
This class.
Let's go. Here we go. All right. EMA, positive analytic. Here we go. Question 1. Halloween theme going? I want to hear the remix of this, you know, Matt? Remix would be easy, right? Oh, yeah. You're reading. Anything without, you're good. George, you can do it. You're good. There are how many parts of the world at? Type it out. How we doing? That's okay. You're very attached to this. I'm so proud of you for your passion for technology. Luckily, you do this. I know. There you go. Nice. Well done. Sylvia at the top. Uh-oh. Number 9. Sylvia, did you read this one? I highlighted too. We're getting close, right? Maybe I should give you under 30 seconds. I'm not trying to say this or anything. No, it wasn't. Maybe we didn't. Well, you have to sit there and put it together, right? Jen, this was easy, right? Here we go. Right, your handbook at your catechism. I thought there was supposed to be a time limit. Does it? If you take too long, does it go away or what? No, it doesn't. Class action, Richard, this is telling you how we're 16%. Can we get above? Can we get above it? Is this a D? Cody says before the curve. Cody. you like? No, I don't. I don't want to do that. That's me. Should we though? Should we? Should we? What kind of a class are we? Should we take a look down the road? Down the road. See where we're at. Christy, coming in stronger. We'll stop at 15. Top 15. Haley made the cut. All right. Close that up. There's also there. All right. I'll come back to that later. Okay. Well, good. Thank you. 60%. That's actually helpful for us too. I do think, though, like I say, we should. Hopefully, those weren't too hard. They were more or less. But I know you didn't. You know, I don't want to intimidate you, but I do think it is good to call upon that and to see where we're at with things. Okay, so today we're talking about the Christian moral life. And let me move this up here. So John Paul II, in his, like I say, his encyclical, opens with a kind of a nice little overview of how Christ has come to enlighten everyone. And at the same time, though, sin sometimes clouds us. And sin has made it difficult, right? That sort of woundedness. But he starts out, and it gets down to number 2. Ooh, I have a pointer. Don't I? Down here. He says, no one can escape the fundamental questions, what must I do? How do I distinguish good from evil? The answer is only possible thanks to the splendor of truth which shines forth deep within the human spirit as the psalmist bears witness. There are many who say, oh, that we might see some good, let the light of your face shine on us, O Lord. And the Lord is just a little bit more, and then I know and then we'll get on to our topic a little bit more. Whoop! This is because of your scroll thing, Richard. Richard's scroll thing is broken, and so you just kind of move it around and you hope it lands in the right area. Okay. The decisive answer, he says, to every one of man's questions, his religious and moral questions in particular, is given by Jesus Christ himself. And as the Vatican Council recalls, in fact, it is only in the mystery of the Word incarnate, that's Jesus, that light is shed on the mystery of man. So, for sure, some of us have been to college before, and, you know, stepping into morality class, a lot of us have had that experience where it seems like contemporary colleges, you know, their interest is just throwing moral conundrums at people, you know. Should you sleep with Hitler to save Romania? You know, this is like how they spend their time on crazy things that are not helpful. We, in this class tonight, are just going to talk a little bit about the law and goodness and truth. So we begin with some of those questions some of our reading today was about the Old Testament and eternal law. So that first answer, one of those answers was God's law, right? God's law, and that is what was given to the Israelites at Mount Sinai. But it also talked about how there's, what John Paul has talked about, that there's a sense of natural law that's written into man's heart. Now, at times, we make errors in that, and at times that is kind of something that we need help with. And we talked a little bit about it on Sunday in terms of just this voting, that sometimes we can get confused. And for that reason, Mother Church is here to help, to interpret, and to help make sense of the law. So, we then would distinguish, I guess, between the old law and the new law. If we say old law, we mean what? What does that correspond to? Old law. Old Testament, right? The Decalogue, the 10 Commandments. And one of those questions on there said, is it enough if we just have the old law to be saved? That was a trickier question. What was the answer from our reading today? Is that enough? Is that sufficient? She's shaking her head. Why is that? Why did it say that in the reading? Do you remember? I know, but you got a good score, so you can always hang your head on that. Why was it not sufficient?
Because we need the New Testament as well after everything.
Yes, we do. What might we say was missing from the old law? Why is it insufficient is the word that they use, or why is it not sufficient? Love is missing. Good answer. I talked about it a little bit on Sunday, right? who is there at any of my masses? Any of my masses is Jesus Christ's priesthood. But the masses that I offered with the priesthood of Jesus Christ. Yes. Did I talk about that? What was another way of saying what the new law, we might say? The new law is also the positive moral law. The Old Testament is good. Is it still valid? That was also on the quiz. Is it still valid? Is it in play? Is adultery somehow okay in the New Covenant? No. But there's a slow build. The more you see that God, it's not, and sometimes there's a tendency from, especially people who are not Christian, to see a real division and a chasm between the Old and the New Testament. Now, oh, God the Father is this way and harsh and unyielding commandment, and now the new one is so different. But the bridge, and of course Christ does bridge the old and the new, but at the same time they're far more connected than people think. And there's a lot more of that. And so all those Old Testament laws are absolutely still things that we abide by. But he came to give us, we might say, the fullness of the law. And also, it's challenging for sure, right? As the rich young man came to Jesus, he said, look, I did all these 10. I didn't do any of these things. Am I good, right? And the Lord calls him to much more. And that's really important as Christians because sometimes we can rest on our laurels. We'll say, well, I obeyed the first commandment. I obeyed the 9th one. I obeyed the 7th one. I didn't steal. I didn't lie. I'm good. And the new law or the new covenant, Christ brings the fullness of truth, the fullness and the richness, in which, it's a high bar, but he promises it's worth it. So just a little introduction to that. So, okay, so Old Covenant still in play for sure in the sense of the Decalogue. Now, the things that the Lord came to abolish, or at least the things that were not necessary anymore, do you remember what that was from the reading? What was that thing that we talked about that a little bit in the reading? What are the things that fell away when Christ came? What are the things that fell away? It's just a more challenging question. It was in smaller print. It wasn't a big title of a section or anything like that. But there were a lot of ritual laws of of food laws and table laws, right? Do we still, for instance, are we allowed to eat bacon?
Yeah, I love bacon.
Okay, suddenly the crowd is very engaged. Yes. Yes, bacon is not forbidden in the New Covenant. That for sure is not part of it, right? A lot of the washings, the ceremonies, the things that were unclean and clean, those things, kosher things, right? You can buy kosher salt, but you don't need to because you can have kosher or non-kosher, right? Those things, a lot of those things which were meant to pass away did pass away. But the eternal law remains, those 10, for sure. Okay, questions so far? Thoughts? Let's watch a little video about the new law. So we have, I'm aware that, and I value variety of presentation styles. I think it's important. Over here. Nope, not that one. This one, okay. Grade 8. Don't worry, it's good for all ages. Down here. So this is part of a large set of 10 videos that Bishop Barron did called Catholicism. And part of the richness is as he's talking and he's teaching beautiful things and he's recapping and so forth, but also he's going through the Holy Land. So you're walking and you're seeing all the incredible things. If you ever get a chance to go to the Holy Land, it is so, so powerful. But here, he takes us and kind of is going to show us a lot of these things. This is from just places around Palestine. So we get to kind of watch and to listen, which is always beneficial.
I'm standing on the Mount of Beatitudes, where Jesus gave his great programmatic sermon, laying out the form of life for the gathered people Israel. Jesus was seen as the new Moses. Moses went up a mountain, Mount Sinai, to bring down the 10 Commandments. Here's Jesus, the new Moses, on this mountain. I know what you might be thinking. Laws, rules, regulations. Weren't 10 enough? Now we have 8 more. It seems as though at times the Catholic Church is obsessed with rules and regulations. But look at the first word that Jesus says from this place. The first word out of his mouth in the Beatitudes is happy. He says, blessed, happy are the poor in spirit. Jesus' life is about joy. He says at the Last Supper, I've come that you might have joy. You might share my joy and it might be complete. How do we relate joy to the law? Two things that seem often at odds with each other. Part of the problem is we have a very modern sense of freedom. Freedom means I can do what I want. I find joy when I determine my own life. But there's a different view of freedom in the Bible. You might call it freedom for excellence. It means the disciplining of desire so as to make the achievement of the good first possible and then effortless. So I stand before you as a relatively free speaker of English. I can say whatever I want. Is that because I just decided I'll speak any way I feel like? No, I was disciplined by a whole series of laws and rules, regulations. What's Jesus telling us here on the Mount of Beatitudes? He's telling us the laws, the rules, if you want, that will place within our bodies and our minds and our spirit the capacity for joy. That's why on this place of the law, the new lawgiver, the new Moses, is the great place of joy, of beatitudo.
That's hard. It says
I'd like to suggest a reading of the 8 Beatitudes that looks first at the more positive formulations. Jesus says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy." This stands at the heart of the matter, for mercy, or tender compassion, is God's most distinctive characteristic. St. John would give the same idea a New Testament expression in saying, God is love. To have a divine life in you, therefore, is to be conformed to love, to become love. And therefore, when you receive the divine life as a gift, you must give it as a gift. And then by a kind of spiritual physics, the divine life increases in you. We turn now to the closely related beatitude. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. This means that you will be happy if there is no ambiguity in your heart about what is most important. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said that the saint is someone whose life is about one thing. He didn't mean that the saint lives a monotonous existence. He meant that a truly holy person has ordered her heart toward pleasing God alone. And thus, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. We want many things, but what most fundamentally do we want? What is the hunger that defines and orders the secondary hungers of your life? What in Paul Tillich's language is your ultimate concern? If it's anything other than the will and purpose of God, anything other than righteousness, you will be unfulfilled. The last of the positive beatitudes is this. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Since God is the creator, he is that power through which all creatures are connected to one another. God is a gathering force, the unifier of all that he has made. Therefore, the one who has fundamentally ordered his life to God becomes necessarily a peacemaker, for he channels the metaphysical energy that links all things and all people. One of the most recognizable signs of sanctity, you can see it in all the saints, is the radiation of just this reconciling power. That's why a peacemaker becomes, ipso facto, a child of God, and therefore happy.
Yes. We are very happy to see you. Thank you for those songs. Beautiful. Thank you.
The first of the negative formulations is, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This is neither a romanticizing of economic poverty nor a demonization of wealth, but rather a formula for detachment. Might I suggest a somewhat variant rendition? How blessed are you if you are not attached to material things, if you have not placed the goods that wealth can buy at the center of your concern. When the kingdom of God is your ultimate concern, not only will you not become addicted to material things, you will in fact be able to use them with great effectiveness for God's purposes. Under the same rubric of detachment, we should consider the Beatitude, how blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Now I know this can sound like the worst kind of masochism, but we have to dig deeper. I think a very legitimate translation would be, how lucky you are, how happy and blessed you are if you're not addicted to good feelings. Good feelings, pleasant sensations, physical, emotional, psychological, are wonderful, but they're not God. And if we turn them into God, they become in short order the focus of an addiction, which can be seen clearly enough in the prevalence of drug abuse and pornography and conspicuous consumption in our society. Again, this has nothing to do with Puritanism. It has to do with detachment, and therefore with spiritual freedom. Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." Once more, Jesus is not so much passing judgment on institutions of power as he is showing a path of detachment. How lucky you are if you are not attached to the finite good of worldly power. J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, experienced at first hand the horrors of the First World War and witnessed those of the Second. It's no accident that in his great work he proposed as the most tempting talisman precisely a ring of power. But when you're detached from worldly power, then you can follow the will of God, even if it means walking a path of extreme powerlessness. Meek, unaddicted to worldly power, you can become a conduit of true divine power to the world. And the last of the negative Beatitudes is, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." We must read this once again in light of Thomas Aquinas' analysis. If the call to poverty holds off the addiction to material things, and the summons to mourn counters the addiction to good feelings, and the valorization of meekness blocks the addiction to power, this last beatitude gets in the way of the addicting attachment to honor.
That's part of his second video, I think. I think he kind of abridges that a little bit. Okay. All right, so maybe there's a lot more time spent in other countries. Clearly they were not in Palestine at the end there for most of that. Bring back up just a little bit here. As we then, so this section combines a few things. So our understanding of law, actually we go through this. Okay.
Feeding the hungry, clothing the naked,
Not fair.
visiting the imprisoned, burying the dead, counseling the doubtful.
Social justice, another time. Okay. Okay. Catechism says that law is a rule of conduct enabled by and enacted by competent authority for the sake of the common good. The moral law presupposes the rational order established among creatures for their good to serve their final end by the power, wisdom, and goodness of the Creator. And all law finds its truth in the eternal law. Okay, so the different types of law. So eternal law comes from God himself. And he's given that in Scripture, yes? And that would be, those things, of course, will never change. Then there's, the church would talk about natural law revealed in the human heart. And finally, we have other laws too. But law is tied to happiness as well. Now we don't think about that because we think about, and Bishop Barrett tried to talk about that, like, at the beginning, that the church, sometimes people see the church as a lot of rules. After all, that catechism is pretty thick, isn't it? I mean, if you have, that's the pocket one, and the font is pretty tiny. If you get the big green one, though, there's a lot in there. How do we talk about law and happiness or human flourishing together? Or maybe touching that out a little bit today. What would be, if someone were to say to you, it's good to kind of flesh these things out a little bit too, because again, God willing, coming into the church hopefully in April, if that's, as the Holy Spirit continues to bring you there closer. Some people will talk about that. Maybe they come up and they say, man, you became a Catholic, you guys got a lot of rules in there. Why would you want to do that? There's so many rules to be part of the church. What might we say to that, based upon a little bit of our reading and just some of what Bishop Barron was trying to express a little bit with the Beatitudes? Law and happiness, how do they go together? How do laws make us happy? How do laws make us happy? A mom speaking up, good.
Well, I feel like sometimes the laws for you, things that are like,
Sorry, the laws for you? Sorry.
They free you.
Laws free you.
And sometimes, I feel like following the rules ultimately make you happier because they're what's good for you.
Very nicely said. Laws might point us toward the good, right? Mm-hmm. And what would happen if we didn't have laws? What would happen if we didn't have laws? Chaos. But isn't punishment bad? Putting people in trouble? God punishing people for sinning? Isn't that, I know, I'm so tricky up here. Is punishment a bad thing or a good thing? Why is it a good thing? I like that. She says she bravely volunteers. It's a good thing. When Richard didn't punish you for not sitting in the back, let's use his sins as an example of that, right? So he doesn't punish you for that. What does that mean then? Why even do good then, sort of, right? Or the absence of that? Yeah.
Well, God's a just God, right?
Yes.
So he has to do this. That's why we love him, because he's just. But he's also has grace, so he's merciful too.
Beautiful. So you said he's a just God, so you said he has to do it?
He's a just God.
Uh-huh. So justice is good, or justice is according to his nature, that's true. And you're so close. What else is in that? Why is justice a good thing? One is he's a man of his word, right? There's integrity there. Unlike Richard's promise to punish you if you sit in the back. What else is that? Why else is that good? Why else is justice good? It's integrity. You lose all authority as a parent if you don't do what you say you're going to do, right? If you keep doing this, you're going to have to go to bed. My uncle, for instance, had the worst behaved dog of all time. The dog's name was Marley. And he would always say, no bark, and she'd go, ruff, and they would, no bark, even louder, and then they'd just give her a treat. I'm like, well, this is the worst. This is why your dog is the worst. She is spoiled, awful. Marley is the worst. She was pretty bad. So there was no justice there, and we all paid for it. And she also learned that there's no, why be good, right? Most of you, I think, here follow most of the commandments, consciously or unconsciously. Sometimes there's civil laws, don't drive that fast, pay taxes. Sometimes there are moral laws, be faithful to your spouse, to your loved ones. Sometimes, there are laws that you're doing and you don't even know you're doing. But there'd be no point to that if there's no justice, of course. There's no sense of that. But laws do point us toward the good they keep, and they enable us to have a greater capacity for good too, as they keep us on track. Okay, so Beatitudes though. So the Sermon on the Mount is the heart of the new law. We read that, I think, in the packet too. Yes? Mm-hmm. That was a long sermon, wasn't it? Matthew, it's 5, 6, 7 of Matthew's Gospel. In different places it's longer or shorter. But those 3 chapters are the heart of the new law, the proclamation of the kingdom. And he starts out with those words of blessed or happiness. Yes? Let's talk a little bit about that. So we've got then the law, we've got the new law, and the new law then is not the absence of the old law, but it does demand more of us. What things then do we see in the new law? Say a little bit maybe back with the 8 Beatitudes, or some parts that our Lord brought. Someone said love earlier, that was a good answer. What things did our Lord ask? Some of it's in the packet, some of it's in the catechism. What things did the Lord bring in the new covenant, maybe? What did he bring?
Like, blessed are the peacemakers, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's it. Blessed are the peacemakers. Was that Was that something that is new to the new covenant? I think so.
Exactly highlighted it, because it's really a challenge for us to,
Mhm.
like, how, some of it's tied to respect and also maybe even evangelization. How do you do that in a peaceful way, in a constructive way? And it's pretty hard.
Yeah, a peace is not only just an absence of something evil, but also a good to pursue. You might, if you want to scroll down a little bit here, let's bring up more of the catechism. Let's try this method here. So this is part of the assigned reading. And of course, the catechism is, now here's what our friend in the back was saying: man participates in the wisdom and the goodness of the Creator, who gives him mastery over his acts and the ability to govern himself with a view to the one and true good. Now, and then it enables us to discern evil, the truth, and the lie. Yeah, some of the new covenant, though, I think we have to go a little bit further to get there, because I think it's still in the law section. Sorry. Down here. Okay. Natural law, good work, precepts of the law. Okay.